The fireplace crackles. Orange light dances across marble and blood-red Persian rugs. November wind hammers the lodge windows like fists demanding entry. Dominic Corsetti kneels on that rug, his 6'2" frame folded forward, his tailored black suit jacket discarded somewhere behind him. His white dress shirt is unbuttoned at the collar, revealing the thick gold chain he never removes. His dark eyes that have ordered 17 men dead in a single night, eyes that do not know how to show fear, stare at the small body before him. Emma. 8 years old. 12 pounds of his entire world. Her lips are turning blue. A color that should not exist on a child's mouth. Dr. Raymond Chen stands frozen against the stone wall, his medical bag open but useless in his trembling hands. $50,000 Dominic paid to have him flown here on the private jet, and the man cannot move. Cannot think. The most expensive physician in the Midwest is worthless when the patient is a child. Marco and Sal press themselves against the windows. These two men have executed rivals without flinching. They have watched acid dissolve bodies in bathtubs. They have ordered hits on entire families. But right now they cannot breathe. Marco's jaw clenches so hard his teeth might crack. Dominic's hands hover above Emma's small chest. They do not touch her. They shake. She is not breathing, he says. His voice sounds like something breaking. She is not breathing and nobody is moving. The silence is complete. Then footsteps. Fast. Wet. Vivien Harper drops to her knees beside Emma. The maid. The invisible woman in the black and white uniform. The one who cleans the marble floors and scrubs the kitchen tile while Dominic eats breakfast without seeing her face. Her hands are still damp from cleaning the lodge kitchen. Her dark hair is pulled back in a neat bun. She looks at Emma's blue lips for exactly 1 second and then her training takes over. She tilts Emma's head back. Opens the girl's mouth. Pinches her nose. She breathes into Emma, long and steady, as if she is sharing her own life. Then she places the heel of her hand on Emma's small chest. The other hand on top. And she begins. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The compressions are precise. The rhythm never wavers. She does not count aloud, but her body knows the beat, knows the pressure, knows that if she stops for even a moment, Emma will slip into a place where no one can bring her back. Vivien breathes again. Tilts the girl's chin. Air moving in and out of a small mouth. Compressions again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 30 seconds pass. A minute. The wind outside sounds like a living thing, something with teeth and hunger. Emma's tiny chest heaves. She gasps. A sound like someone breaking the surface after drowning. Her eyes flutter open. She coughs, a desperate sound, and Vivien immediately rolls her onto her side as fluid pours from Emma's mouth. The girl is crying. Gasping. Alive. Vivien pulls her close and Emma's small arms wrap around her neck with the grip of someone who has just returned from death itself. Dominic stares at this woman he has never truly looked at. Her dark eyes are wet. Her uniform is soaked. Her hands are shaking the exact way his hands are shaking. But her voice is steady when she speaks to Emma. "You are safe," Vivien whispers. "You are safe and you are here and I am right here with you." Emma cries into her shoulder. Dominic is still on his knees. In 15 years, Marco has never seen him on his knees for anyone. In 15 years, Sal has never seen the man's face do what it is doing right now. Something inside Dominic Corsetti is breaking open like ice under spring thaw, something he spent decades building walls around, and it is breaking because of a maid he cannot remember hiring. But what Vivien did not know was that this moment in the lodge, this moment with Emma gasping and alive in her arms, was not the beginning of their story. It was the end of it. The very end. 3 months earlier, on a night when the temperature dropped to 14 degrees, Vivien Harper stood in the ashes of her life in a different way entirely. Before we continue, drop a like if this story hits you. Share it with someone who needs to hear it and subscribe so you do not miss what is coming tomorrow. Every comment you leave is a precious source of motivation that helps us continue creating meaningful stories. Now, let us go back to the beginning. Let us go back to the night everything burned. The apartment building on the south side smells like burnt plastic and something else, something chemical and wrong. Vivien Harper stands on the street in clothes that are not hers, borrowed from a woman named Carol who works at the diner where Vivien pulled double shifts for 8 years. The building is still smoking. 23 degrees outside. She is shaking, but she cannot tell if it is the cold or something deeper. The firemen already left. The police already left. What is left is the empty shell of 4B, a one-bedroom apartment with brown water stains on the ceiling that she shared with her 2 children, Marcus age 6 and Lily age 4. Vivien is 28 years old, but right now she looks 35. The exhaustion sits in her face like a permanent guest. Her dark hair hangs limp. Her hands, when they are visible at all, are cracked and raw from cleaning jobs. This is what poverty does. It ages you from the inside out. In her coat pocket, she has $17. 17. The fire started in the kitchen, the inspector told her. Faulty wiring in the unit below, the wiring she reported to the landlord in writing 4 times. For handwritten letters documenting the exposed copper and the sparks and the smell of burning plastic when the heater turned on. The landlord, a man named Russo who collected rent but fixed nothing, did not respond to any of them. The children are with Carol tonight. Carol took them to her own apartment, a 3-bedroom in a different neighborhood where the walls do not leak and the heat works in the winter. Carol, who makes less than minimum wage and raises 2 of her own children, opened her door to Marcus and Lily without hesitation. Vivien has no way to pay her back. She has no apartment. No clothes except these borrowed ones and the uniform for her 2 jobs. No bed. No place for her children to sleep tomorrow except on a stranger's floor. In her pocket, beneath the $17, is a piece of paper so worn and soft it feels like fabric. It is a college acceptance letter. The letter is from Northwestern University and it is dated 6 years ago. Full scholarship. 4-year program. She was going to study nursing. She was going to become someone other than her mother, who cleaned houses until her back broke at 42. She was going to do something meaningful with her life. But then Marcus was born when Vivien was 22 and the scholarship required full-time enrollment. The letter still sits in her pocket sometimes, soft from being carried, soft from being touched by hands that once believed they could be different. She folds it carefully and puts it back in her pocket. The wind comes off the street and it cuts through the borrowed jacket like a blade wrapped in ice. 30 miles away, in a penthouse office on the 42nd floor of a building in downtown Chicago, Dominic Corsetti is reading about her for the first time. Not reading about her. Reading about Anthony Marchetti. The name at the bottom of a file that his investigator, Chen, placed on his desk at 11:15 on a Tuesday night. Dominic is 38 years old. He inherited this empire from his father 14 years ago, inheriting it the way one inherits a loaded gun. His father died when Dominic was 24, shot 3 times in the chest by a rival who thought the crime family would collapse without the old man's cold hand guiding it. The rival was correct about one thing: the family did change. It did not collapse. It grew. Dominic grew it. He turned what his father built with violence into something more terrible, something systematic, something that did not leave room for mercy because mercy is weakness and weakness is death. He has loved exactly one person in his adult life. His daughter Emma. His wife died giving birth to her, bleeding out on an operating table while Dominic waited in a private hospital room paid for with money that came from trafficking. The irony does not escape him. Emma is 8 years old. She is the only soft thing in his life. The only moment when his chest does not feel like it is built from concrete. The file on his desk contains information about a drug operation being run out of a warehouse in the West Side. Low level. Sloppy. Exactly the kind of operation that draws police attention and threatens the larger networks. It should not concern him. It is small. But the name Anthony Marchetti ties to the Calabrese family, a rival network that has been testing Dominic's borders, testing to see if he is weak, if he is distracted, if his hand has softened with age and fatherhood. Dominic reads the file in the darkness of his office, the city lights of Chicago spread below him like something conquered. He does not know that in 12 weeks, this man will hunt someone into his own home. He does not know that mercy, which he never learned, will be taught to him by hands that have never held anything more valuable than cleaning supplies. He simply reads the file and makes a note in the margin, eliminate. The wind outside Vivien's borrowed apartment howls like something dying. Tomorrow she will wake at 5 in the morning to clean houses before her shift at the diner begins at 9. She will walk 4 miles because the bus costs $2 and she cannot spend $2 on something as simple as transportation. She will work 14 hours for approximately $47. She will come back to Carol's apartment and sleep on the couch and listen to her children breathe in the darkness, grateful they are alive, grateful they are breathing, wondering how much longer she can do this. What changed everything was a single moment, 3 months in the future, when a child named Emma would stop breathing and a maid in a black and white uniform would know exactly what to do. But that moment has not arrived yet. For now, there is only the cold and the ashes and $17 that need to stretch into impossible tomorrows. The wind outside Vivien's borrowed apartment howls like something dying. She stands in front of the blackened skeleton of what used to be her home, holding a single photograph pulled from the rubble. Her 2 children smile up at her from Navy Pier last summer, their faces frozen in a moment when everything was still whole. Jacob, age 6, and Lily, age 4, are 3 blocks away now, sleeping on a borrowed couch in her sister Carol's 1-bedroom apartment in Pilsen, wearing clothes that smell like strangers' detergent. The fire inspector said faulty wiring. The insurance company said pre-existing damage not covered. Her savings account holds $17. 17. She counted it 3 times, hoping the mathematics would change. 3 months have passed since the fire. 3 months of impossible choices stacked like weights on her chest. Carol's apartment is small, so small that when Jacob cries at night, everyone wakes. When Lily has nightmares about the smoke, Vivien holds her and whispers promises she does not know how to keep. Vivien takes 3 buses to reach the Corsetti mansion in Lincoln Park. The route takes 58 minutes when the traffic flows smoothly, 85 minutes when it does not. She cannot afford to be late. She arrives at 5:08 a.m., before the other staff, before the sun touches the tops of the oak trees that line the circular drive. The mansion rises before her like a structure from another world. 3 stories of pale limestone, windows that catch the dawn light like captured stars, a fountain in the courtyard where bronze dolphins leap toward nothing. Vivien has never seen a place with so much space dedicated to emptiness. Rooms that echo. Hallways that lead nowhere. A library with first edition books that no one reads, their spines uncracked like sealed promises. She enters through the service entrance, her black uniform already pulled tight around her waist because she has lost weight. The kitchen smells like expensive coffee and fresh bread. Antonio, the cook, barely glances at her as she passes. Mrs. Chen, the head housekeeper, simply points toward the marble floors of the main hallway without speaking. The work is methodical. She scrubs on her knees, her calloused fingers gripping the brush, her shoulders moving in the same pattern she learned years ago in hotel work. Scrub, rinse, move forward. The marble is cold and smooth and reflects her face like a mirror she does not want to see. She is 29 years old but looks decades older. The vertical line between her eyebrows never goes away anymore. She has memorized the mansion's rhythms. Dominic Corsetti walks past her in the hallway at 6:34 a.m., his footsteps measured, unhurried. He wears a suit that costs more than everything she owns. He never meets her eyes. None of them do. She is a shadow in a black uniform, polishing silver while his men discuss things in the next room that make people disappear. Cleaning windows while he signs documents at the mahogany desk in his office. Her financial life has become mathematics she cannot solve. $2,400 per month. $80 goes to the city for bus passes. $800 goes to Carol for the apartment, even though Vivien hates it, hates imposing, hates the way Carol's boyfriend looks at her now like she is a charity case. $500 to the debt collector for Lily's pneumonia treatment from last winter, a hospital stay that should never have cost so much money. $400 for childcare. Carol's neighbor Mrs. Lopez watches them during the day and some evenings, though Vivien can feel the guilt accumulating like interest on a loan she can never repay. $300 for food. That leaves $400 for everything else. Everything. Clothes, transportation, the impossible dream of a security deposit on a new apartment. She works until 6 p.m., and then the buses. Bus number 8 to the Wilson stop. Bus number 49 toward downtown. Bus number 14 back into Pilsen. She falls asleep on the last bus sometimes, her head resting against the window, her mind blank like a television with no signal. When she arrives, it is nearly 8 o'clock. She reads bedtime stories she has memorized because she cannot afford new books. The same stories every night until Jacob falls asleep, then Lily. Sometimes she does not sleep. She sits on the couch in Carol's living room and stares at a torn piece of paper she pulled from the ash and debris. It is a college acceptance letter addressed to her, from Northwestern University, dated 15 years ago. She was going to study education. She was going to be a teacher. The letter is half destroyed, the margins charred, but her name is still visible in the letterhead. Vivien Marie Harper. It sits in her pocket now like a secret shame. 3 weeks into her employment at the mansion, she learns that Emma Corsetti attends Lincoln Academy, a private school where uniforms cost more than Vivien's monthly salary. The school hosts a fall festival on the mansion grounds. Parents arrive in black SUVs, children in uniforms so perfect they look constructed rather than worn. Vivien is in the catering tent washing champagne glasses when she hears screaming. The sound cuts through the air like a blade. She sets down the glass she is holding. Her hands know before her mind does. Emma has collapsed near the hedge maze. Teachers cluster around her. She is not breathing correctly. Her lips are turning blue. Her EpiPen lies 15 feet away where it fell from her bag. Vivien runs. Her black shoes slide on wet grass. She reaches Emma in 4 seconds, for seconds that feel stretched like pulled taffy. She knows exactly what to do because Lily has the same allergy, anaphylaxis, a word Vivien has learned to say correctly even though it terrifies her every time she says it. Vivien jabs the EpiPen into the girl's thigh with the confidence of someone who has done this before. Emma gasps. Color returns to her face like someone turning up the brightness on the world. The girl grabs Vivien's hand and will not let go even when Dominic arrives, even when the paramedics try to take her to sit on the ambulance stretcher. Vivien feels the small hand gripping hers like an anchor. Emma looks at her with eyes the same gray as her father's and says nothing. She simply holds on. That night, Vivien is summoned to Dominic's office. She has never been inside this room before. Dark wood paneling. Leather chairs the color of cognac. A painting of his father hangs above the fireplace. The man in the portrait has the same face, the same cold eyes, the same expression that suggests he has seen things that cannot be unseen. Dominic sits behind his desk. He does not ask her to sit. He is dressed in white shirt sleeves, his suit jacket draped over the chair, and she can see the edge of a scar that runs from his collarbone toward his shoulder. His voice, when he speaks, is deep and solid like an oath. "You knew what to do," he says. It is not a question. "My daughter," Vivien replies. Her voice trembles like a candle in the wind. Lily has the same allergy. Since she was 2 years old. He nods slowly. Emma will not let anyone else near her. Not my security. Not the paramedics. She asked for you. He pauses. The city lights of Chicago spread behind him through the window, 1,000 small lights that suggest a world functioning normally while hers has collapsed. "I am offering you a new position. Emma's personal caregiver. You will continue your cleaning duties, but your primary responsibility will be Emma. Same salary. But you will live here. Staff quarters above the garage. Your children will come with you. The words land like stones dropped into still water. She does not trust this offer. She has learned not to trust anything that sounds like salvation. But her son is sleeping on a borrowed couch. Her daughter wakes up screaming about smoke. She has $17 in her checking account. Yes, she says. The word comes out before she can stop it. Yes, I accept. He nods once. You start tomorrow. Marco will help you move your belongings. He turns his attention back to the documents on his desk, a dismissal so complete she understands she is no longer there. She walks out of the office, down the corridor, past the portrait of his father. Her hands are shaking. Above the garage. A roof that belongs to no one but will keep the rain off her children's heads. She thinks of Jacob and Lily sleeping in Carol's apartment, and then she allows herself to imagine something she has not permitted in 3 months. She allows herself to imagine tomorrow. Dominic Corsetti sits at his mahogany desk at 11:11 p.m., the city of Chicago spread beneath him like a map of territories he controls, when Marco enters carrying a tablet with the weight of a confession. The boss does not look up from the shipping manifest scattered across his desk, papers detailing legitimate businesses layered over operations that exist in shadow. Marco clears his throat. Watch this, he says. His voice carries the tone of a man about to deliver news that changes everything. The security footage plays across the screen. Vivien walks through the November rain at 6:41 p.m., her coat too thin for the cold, her pace quickening as she approaches Fullerton Avenue. Her shoulders hunch as if trying to make herself smaller, invisible. Behind her, a black Dodge Charger crawls through traffic with the patience of something that knows its prey cannot run forever. The car stops. A man emerges. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a leather jacket over a black shirt. His face catches the streetlight and Marco freezes the frame. Anthony Marchetti. Arrested twice for assault. Connected to the West Side crew. Walking free because 3 Chicago police officers have accepted his money and his loyalty. In the footage, Anthony smiles. Not the smile of someone greeting a friend but the smile of a predator recognizing weakness. He calls Vivien's name. She runs. The footage shows her stumbling once on the wet pavement, recovering, disappearing around the corner of a bodega. Anthony does not chase her. He simply stands there, still smiling, because he does not need to chase anyone. He already knows where she sleeps. Marco says quietly, she never reported this to us. Dominic rewinds the footage and watches Vivien's face again. Pure terror. The kind of terror that comes not from a single threat but from the understanding that every place you thought was safe has already been penetrated. He has seen that expression before on men who knew they were about to die. The next morning, Dominic Corsetti does something he has not done in 15 years. He leaves his office, his empire, his carefully constructed distance, and he follows someone himself. Not through Marco or Sal or any of the 12 men who move through the city like ghosts executing his will. He follows Vivien Harper personally. She takes Emma to the park on Armitage Avenue at 10 a.m. The 8-year-old girl holds Vivien's hand and points at birds landing on the frozen grass. Vivien smiles but her eyes never stop moving. They scan every parked car, every man standing alone, every shadow that might contain a threat. She positions her body between Emma and the street with the precision of someone who has learned this calculation through survival. A black sedan passes slowly. Her hand tightens on Emma's sleeve though the girl does not notice. Dominic watches from across the park, standing beneath an oak tree stripped of leaves, and he understands that this woman has been hunted. Later that afternoon she takes the bus to Pilsen, to a 3-story apartment building with boarded windows on the first floor. Dominic follows 2 cars behind. She climbs the stairs carrying grocery bags that do not match the apartment he pays her to live in. The bags contain basics: rice, beans, powdered milk, eggs. Survival food. She emerges 20 minutes later and stands on the corner in the November rain with her hand shaking as she checks her phone. Dominic has already ordered his tech analyst Dimitri to clone her phone. Standard precaution for household staff. The messages have been coming for 3 days. Unknown number. The first one, I know where you work now. The second, 10 days, Viv. Then I come for you and everyone you love. The third, $150,000 or I tell my boss you stole from me. The fourth, you know what I do to people who steal from me. The fifth, you know what I do to their families. Dominic follows her for 3 more nights. On the 4th night she stops at St. Alphonsus Church on Damon Avenue, parking the borrowed staff car 2 blocks away so no one at the mansion will know where she went. She sits in the last pew for 53 minutes. Her head is in her hands. Her shoulders shake. Dominic stands in the back of the church, watching her pray to a God who has already taken her apartment, her savings, her security. When she leaves she does not look at the candles burning in the sanctuary. She does not light one of her own. On the 5th night she goes to Western Union and stands at the counter with a pen in her trembling hand. The form sits before her, space for recipient name, amount, destination. She stares at it for 7 minutes. Then she puts down the pen and walks out of the building. The money does not exist. The money has never existed. She has $17 in her checking account and 2 children sleeping in rooms above his garage. On the 6th night he watches her through the security camera feed in his office. She sits at the kitchen table in the staff apartment at 2:14 a.m. when no one else is awake. The camera angle is imperfect but he sees her hand moving across paper, scratching something out, starting again. She writes 7 attempts before folding a single sheet and sealing it in an envelope. She writes his name on the front in careful handwriting, Dominic. She places it in her apron pocket. The next morning Dominic calls her into his office. His voice comes through the intercom with the weight of a summons. Vivien arrives within 5 minutes, still wearing her cleaning uniform, her dark hair pulled back so tightly it stretches the skin at her temples. She sits on the edge of the leather chair across from his desk like she might need to run. The room is very quiet. Only the sound of rain against the windows and the distant rumble of Chicago traffic below. He asks, "Who is Anthony Marchetti?" Her entire body goes rigid. Before she can answer he turns his computer screen toward her and presses play. The security footage fills the screen. Vivien's face in the rain. Anthony's smile. Her running. She closes her eyes and whispers, "He is no one. You do not need to worry about him." Dominic leans forward across the mahogany desk. His hands are steady. His voice is low and carries the tone of thunder moving across a distant sky. "When someone follows my staff, that person becomes my concern. Tell me everything." Vivien resists. "I cannot bring my problems into your house. You have been kind to me and my children. I will leave tomorrow and take them somewhere he cannot find us." Dominic's voice drops further. "You will not leave. You will tell me everything." She does. She tells him about 2 years of dating Anthony. The bruises he said were her fault. The way he screamed when she looked at other men. The night she found his phone and saw messages about shipments and payoffs and Chicago police officers whose names she recognized from her childhood neighborhood. She tells him about trying to leave and about the way Anthony made it clear that was not an option. She tells him about discovering her own name on paperwork filed with the federal government. She tells him about being a ghost of herself, a legal fiction he could use to carry his crimes. Then she tells him about reporting him once to a detective Morrison, and about the way Morrison laughed when she explained what Anthony had done, and about Anthony finding out she had tried, and about the fire 3 months later that consumed everything she owned. The apartment was ruled faulty wiring, she says. But I know he set it. The day before the fire he told me I needed to understand that certain decisions had consequences. The next morning my home was burning. My children were at school. My sister was staying with us. We all got out. But I lost everything. All my documents. My savings accounts were entered while I was moving us to Carol's apartment. He had stolen my identity as completely as he had stolen my freedom. Dominic stands and walks to the window. The city sprawls beneath him. He turns back and asks, "Why 10 days?" Vivien, "I do not know. But I know when Anthony sets a deadline he means it. Whatever this is about, when those 10 days are finished, he will come." Dominic presses the intercom. Marco and Sal enter as if they have been waiting outside, which they have. Both men wear tailored black suits that cost more than Vivien makes in a month. Marco is lean and carries violence in the precise way he moves. Sal is broader, older, with a scar running from his left eye to his jaw. They see Vivien sitting with tears on her face and exchange a look that has no name. Dominic says, "I want to know why the deadline is 10 days. I want to know who Marchetti reports to and why $150,000 matters enough to hunt a woman across Chicago. Find out everything. Sal, you put 2 men on Vivien every time she leaves this property. Marco, you find out which cops are protecting Marchetti and how deep that protection runs." Both men nod and leave immediately. Vivien stares at Dominic. "Why would you help me?" Her voice trembles like a candle in the wind. "I am nobody. I clean your floors and watch your daughter. This is not your problem." Dominic turns from the window and for the first time she sees something other than ice in his eyes. Something that looks almost like memory. He says, "My daughter stops breathing and you save her without hesitation. You do not ask for reward or recognition. You do not even ask why she matters to someone like me. You simply act. That makes you worth more than every person in this city who smiles to my face while plotting behind my back. You are under my protection now. Anyone who threatens you threatens me." She stands, her legs unsteady. She asks, "How long will this protection last?" He holds her gaze and says, "As long as necessary." That evening Marco returns with information that changes everything. Anthony Marchetti is not running his own operation. He is a low-level enforcer for the West Side crew controlled by a man named Thomas Callahan, a name that carries weight in Chicago's underworld like the name of a judge in a legitimate city. The $150,000 is payment Anthony owes Callahan for a shipment that got seized by the FBI 6 weeks ago. Anthony has been telling Callahan that Vivien is the one who tipped off the federal agents, that she stole from him to pay for information to sell to law enforcement. In 10 days Callahan expects payment or Anthony is dead. Which means Anthony will come for Vivien in 9 days because he has nowhere else to turn and a woman's suffering is cheaper than his own execution. Dominic makes a decision that same evening. He calls a house meeting at 7 p.m. Vivien, her 2 children Jacob and Lily, Emma, and the household staff stand in the great room with its vaulted ceilings and marble floors that Vivien has scrubbed on her hands and knees for 3 months. Dominic stands at the far end of the room with Marco and Sal flanking him like sentinels. He says, "We are going to the lodge tomorrow. The lodge is in Wisconsin, 3 hours north, isolated, defensible. It sits on 400 acres of private land with only one access road and a perimeter that can be secured. If Anthony Marchetti comes for Vivien he will come in 9 days and I want to be somewhere I control every variable." Jacob, who is 6 years old, asks, "Is it fun? The lodge?" Dominic looks at the boy and something passes across his face, something almost human. He says, "Yes. It is fun." Emma, 8 years old with dark curls and her father's penetrating eyes, asks, "Will Vivien's children come too?" Dominic says, "Yes." Emma claps her hands and says, "This will be our first real family vacation." The innocence of that statement lands like a hammer striking his heart. That same evening, a cream-colored Bentley pulls into the circular driveway and Margaret Harrington emerges wearing a coat that costs more than Vivien makes in 6 months. Margaret is 34 years old, beautiful in the way that wealth and generations of good genetics allow, with blonde hair styled in waves that look effortless but require the services of a salon in the loop 3 times per month. She is the daughter of Richard Harrington, a property developer with ties to the Irish syndicate that competes with Dominic for city contracts. Margaret has been positioning herself as a potential match for Dominic Corsetti through carefully orchestrated encounters, charity galas where she wears dresses designed by people whose names are mentioned in whispers, dinners where she laughs at precisely the right moments, charitable work that photographs well. But Dominic has never shown interest, and that rejection has curdled into something poisonous. Vivien is carrying Emma's overnight bag through the hallway when Margaret appears. Vivien is small next to Margaret, worn in ways that Margaret will never understand, moving with the quiet efficiency of someone accustomed to being invisible. Margaret circles her slowly, the way someone might circle a piece of art they are trying to determine is authentic or fake. Margaret says, "So you are the new nanny everyone is talking about. The one who thinks she can infiltrate Dominic Corsetti's household by manipulating his daughter." Vivien keeps her voice steady. "I am just the help. I take care of Emma and I do my work." Margaret leans closer and Vivien can smell her perfume, something imported from Paris that costs more than Vivien's monthly rent used to cost. Margaret says, "I have been researching you, Vivien Harper. No employment history before 3 months ago. No references. An apartment that mysteriously burned down. Very convenient. You land a position in Chicago's most powerful household right when you need it most. You see a powerful man and a motherless child and you think this is your chance to climb out of whatever hole you crawled from. But Dominic Corsetti does not fall for manipulative little maids. When he realizes what you really are, he will throw you back into the gutter where you belong. And I will be there to help him see the truth." Margaret walks away, her heels clicking against the marble floor with the precision of a clock counting down. Vivien stands in the hallway shaking, the overnight bag heavy in her hands. What Vivien does not know is that Margaret has already planted seeds of doubt with Marco and Sal, suggesting that Vivien's sudden appearance and Antony's pursuit might be an elaborate con. What Vivien does not know is that Margaret saw the letter Vivien placed in her apron pocket, the letter with Dominic's name written in careful script, and Margaret understands exactly what that letter contains and how it can be weaponized against her. What Vivien does not know is that Margaret has already begun her real plan. The wind howls through the lodge like a blade wrapped in ice, and Emma's small chest stops rising. Silence swallows the room except for the sound of her struggling to breathe, a sound like a creature drowning in air. Dominic Corsetti, the man who commands armies, drops to his knees beside his daughter with tears streaming down his face, his hands hovering uselessly over her body. This man has not cried since he was 14 years old, watching his father die. His most powerful weapon, his mind, his will, his empire, means nothing now. Emma's lips turn blue. Her small fingers claw at her throat. And Vivien Harper moves. She has no EpiPen. The emergency kit is empty, someone took it. Dr. Chen's backup supplies are buried under 4 feet of snow in a car 100 yards away that might as well be across an ocean. But Vivien has something else. She has knowledge earned in panic, taught by an ER doctor 2 years ago when Lily almost stopped breathing. She positions Emma flat, tilts her head back, checks her airway. She begins compressions on the small chest, counting out loud like a prayer, like a ritual that either saves or fails. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Breathe. Compressions. Breathe. The lodge fills with the sound of her palms striking the child's ribs, a rhythm that sounds like hope hitting concrete. 30 seconds pass. 60. Marco and Sal stand frozen like statues, unable to process a world where their boss cannot command his way out of this moment. Margaret presses herself against the wall, watching the consequences of her own carelessness spiral into something real, something that might actually kill a child. 90 seconds. Emma's chest heaves. She gasps, coughs, breathes. Color returns to her face like someone painting life back into a canvas. Vivien cradles her, whispering, "You are okay, sweet girl, you are okay," and Emma clings to her like she is the only solid thing in a world that just tried to take her away. Dominic reaches out with shaking hands and touches his daughter's hair. Then he looks at Vivien with an expression that cracks his entire armor, not the face of a mafia boss but a man who just watched his daughter return from the edge of death. His voice breaks like ice under spring thaw, "You saved her again." Vivien holds Emma tight, someone took her EpiPen. This was not an accident. Dominic stands slowly. The grief in his eyes transforms into something cold and lethal, a temperature that drops the room 10 degrees. He turns to face the room, his voice steady and final. Marco, search everyone's belongings now. Find the EpiPen. You have 10 minutes. The lodge goes silent except for the wind outside and the sound of drawers opening, coats being searched, pockets being turned inside out. Marco moves with the precision of a man who knows what he is looking for. 8 minutes later he returns holding the small orange EpiPen. He found it in Margaret Harrington's coat pocket, hidden beneath a silk scarf. Margaret's face goes white. She opens her mouth to deny it, to craft a lie, but Dominic does not give her the chance. Get out of my sight before I forget that you are Richard Harrington's daughter and that matters for business. You have 10 seconds. Margaret runs for the door, her designer heels slipping on the marble floor, her scarf trailing behind her. She disappears into the blizzard outside. The sound of her car engine turning over, grinding, then fading into the white noise of the storm. She is gone, but her accusation remains, hanging in the air like a knife suspended above everyone's head. Marco approaches Dominic slowly. His voice is careful, the voice of a man walking through a minefield. Boss, there is something else. Before the storm, Margaret told me things. About Vivien. She said she had an investigator look into her background. She found records of Vivien living with Anthony Marchetti. She said Vivien was present at 3 locations where Anthony's shipments were seized. She suggested that maybe Vivien and Anthony planned this together. Maybe the whole thing is a con. The room holds its breath. Dominic turns to look at Vivien. His expression is unreadable, a mask made of stone. He does not speak. He simply watches her, waiting, and Vivien feels every eye in the room land on her like a weight. She steps forward. Her voice is steady. I lived with Anthony for 2 years. I did not know what he did. When I found out, I tried to leave. He did not let me go easily. I was at those locations because he used my apartment and my name without my knowledge. I never knew what was in those shipments. Everything I told you before is the truth. Dominic studies her for a long moment. The silence stretches. Emma whimpers against Vivien's chest, still terrified, still feeling the echo of not being able to breathe. Finally Dominic speaks, I believe you. Marco's face flickers with doubt. Boss. I believe her. Anyone who questions that belief can leave. Now. No one moves. The order settles like a final verdict. Marco nods once, accepting what his boss has decided, and walks away. The other men disperse. Dr. Chen checks Emma's vitals, his hand steady now that he understands the immediate crisis has passed. But Vivien feels the small victory like a knife edge. Margaret has planted doubt that will take time to fully uproot, and time is something she does not have much of anymore. The storm breaks that night. By morning the roads are passable again. But Anthony Marchetti does not wait for the roads to clear. He makes his move on day 9, the day before his deadline expires. He goes to Vivien's sister's apartment in Pilsen at 10 a.m., when the neighborhood is awake but the streets are still quiet. He kicks in the door with 2 men from the West Side crew, their boots splintering the frame, their voices loud and violent. Vivien's sister Carolina scrambles backward, her hands raised, her phone already dialing 911. But help does not come. The responding officers are Anthony's friends. They spend 5 minutes inside the apartment, laugh about something, and leave. No report filed. No investigation opened. Just a subtle message, the law is not her protection. Anthony leaves a message with Carolina, forcing her to repeat it back to him word for word. Tell Vivien she has until midnight tomorrow. Midnight. If she does not come out, I burn down whatever place she is hiding in, and this time I make sure everyone is inside. Vivien receives the message via her sister's panicked call. She stands in the lodge kitchen holding the phone, the words settling into her chest like stones dropped into a well. Midnight tomorrow. That is 12 hours. That is all the time she has left before Anthony makes good on his threat, before he finds this place, before he does what his voice promises he will do. She cannot eat dinner. She cannot sit still. At 11 p.m. she walks out into the cleared driveway alone, standing in the cold November air with the smell of pine and freshly fallen snow surrounding her. She pulls out the torn college acceptance letter from her pocket, the one she has carried for 8 years like a talisman of the life she could have had. The letter from Northwestern University, dated 2015, telling her she was accepted, she had been chosen, she could have been something. She did not go because Anthony said it would take her away from him. She stayed. And 8 years later here she is, standing in a driveway of a mansion that is not hers, with 12 hours before her ex-boyfriend burns down whatever shelter she has found. She thinks about Jacob and Lily sleeping safely inside, about Emma who draws pictures of her, about Dominic who looks at her now like she is more than invisible. She could run. She could take her children and disappear into a different city, change their names, work under the table, live looking over her shoulder for the rest of her life. Or she could walk back inside and accept the truth, someone like her does not get happy endings. The best she can do is keep her children safe even if it means losing everything else. A single snowflake lands on the torn letter. She watches it melt. Then she hears footsteps behind her in the snow, slow and deliberate, each step a soft crunch against the ice. "Running solves nothing," Dominic says. His voice is quiet, steady like stone. She turns. He stands in his black coat, his breath visible in the cold air, his eyes no longer ice but something that burns. "I learned that when I was 14 years old. I watched my father die and I thought if I ran far enough I could escape what I saw, what I felt. Instead I spent 10 years becoming the thing I was running from." "You do not need to run, Vivien. You need to let me finish this." She looks at him. The man who commands armies. The man who lost control only once, when his daughter stopped breathing. "This is not your fight. You became my fight the moment you saved Emma. Before that even. You became my fight the moment I saw you scrubbing floors at 5 a.m. with bleeding knuckles and never once complaining. You became my fight the moment I understood you are the first person in 15 years who sees me as something other than a monster to fear or a weapon to use." He takes the college letter from her hand. He reads it by the lodge lights, the paper thin and worn from 8 years of being folded and unfolded. When he looks up his entire expression has shifted. "You will not disappear. You will not endanger me or my daughter. The only danger now is what I am about to do to Anthony Marchetti and everyone who protected him. Come inside." By 2 a.m. Dominic knows everything. He knows where Anthony is hiding, a warehouse by the Chicago River that belongs to a shell company. He knows which police officers are protecting him. He knows that Margaret's father, Richard Harrington, has business connections to Thomas Callahan, the superintendent of detectives. He knows the entire web of corruption, the entire web of men who chose profit over justice. And he knows exactly how to dismantle it without a single shot fired. 3 weeks later, the December sun turns the Corsetti mansion gold, and Vivien sits in the library with Emma, reading about a girl who finds a secret garden hidden behind a locked door. Emma has decorated the apartment above the garage with drawings, her markers pressing hard into white paper, Vivien and Dominic holding hands, stick figures with hearts for eyes, a house with flowers growing from the roof. Jacob starts 3rd grade at Lincoln Academy next week on a full scholarship. Lily tells everyone her best friend is Emma, even though Emma is 8 and Lily is 6, because age means nothing when you share secrets and make promises. The footsteps on the marble hallway are deliberate, measured, the sound of someone who commands rooms simply by entering them. Dominic appears in the doorway at sunset, the December light turning everything amber and gold. He wears a black sweater, no armor of expensive suits, just the man beneath stripped down to something simpler. Emma screams his name and runs, and he lifts her with ease that still catches everyone off guard, the crime boss who commands armies moving with the gentleness of someone who knows exactly how fragile love is. He kisses her forehead, sets her down, and tells her to find Marco in the kitchen. When Emma leaves, her footsteps echoing down the hallway, he sits beside Vivien on the leather couch. The silence between them is not empty. It is full of 3 weeks of Sunday dinners, of him learning her children's names and their favorite foods, of watching him laugh at Jacob's jokes, of seeing Emma curl into her side during movies, of understanding that this man who was supposed to be a monster was simply a father who had forgotten how to be anything but afraid of losing what he loved. He hands her an envelope. Cream-colored, expensive paper, the kind that costs more than her old monthly rent. "Vivien, what is this?" "Dominic, open it." Inside, a check for $50,000 and a key. The check is signed in steady handwriting. The key is brass, simple, ordinary. She looks at the numbers and cannot breathe. $50,000. "Vivien, I cannot accept this. This is too much. This is..." "Dominic, the check is payment for saving my daughter twice. Once when she stopped breathing and everyone around me froze like statues. Once when she stopped speaking and you were the only person she would talk to. It is payment for bringing life into a house that had forgotten what that looked like, for being the first person in 15 years who made me remember I am more than the grave I dug with my father's name on it. The key is to a house in Oak Park. 3 bedrooms, a yard for your children to run in, your name on the deed." "Vivien, Dominic, I cannot." "Dominic, you can and you will. But there is a condition." She waits. The light through the library windows is fading, turning the room amber, turning everything soft. "Dominic, the house is 10 minutes from this mansion. Close enough that Emma can visit whenever she wants. Close enough that I can take you to dinner without it requiring a tactical operation. Close enough that we can see if this thing between us, this thing I have been afraid to name because I thought I had burned out the part of me that could feel it, is real. Vivien, I want to take you to dinner." "Vivien, you want to take me to dinner?" "Dominic, I want to take you to dinner. I want to meet your children officially, not as their employer but as someone who would like to be in their lives. I want to see if a man who forgot how to be anything other than dangerous can learn again from a woman who never forgot how to be kind even when the world gave her every reason to be cruel. Vivien, I scrub floors for a living. Dominic, you saved my daughter's life twice while everyone around me with expensive degrees and important titles froze. You taught an 8-year-old girl who had not smiled in 3 years how to laugh again. You survived a fire that took everything and still got up at 4:48 in the morning to make a better life for your children. You are worth more than everyone in my organization combined. So yes, Vivien Harper, I want to take you to dinner. And after that I want to see where this goes, because for the first time in 15 years I am interested in building something instead of destroying it." She looks at the check, at the key, at this man who commands armies but is asking her permission like she is the one with power. She thinks about the woman who stood in ashes 3 months ago with $17 and a college letter folded 800 times. She thinks about her children safe, smiling, calling Emma their sister even though they share no blood. She thinks about Emma's drawings covering her walls, about the Sunday dinners where Jacob taught Dominic to play video games and the crime boss sat completely lost but trying because the boy was patient. She thinks about the moment on the driveway when she almost ran and he said she did not have to run anymore. Vivien, yes. The word is small but it echoes. The next morning, Vivien and her children move into the Oak Park house. Jacob runs through rooms choosing the bedroom with the big window that overlooks the backyard. Lily finds the room next to his and declares it perfect because she can knock on the wall 3 times if she gets scared. The floorboards creak when they walk, and the sound is different than the sound of the mansion. It is the sound of a home, not an empire. Boxes arrive from the Corsetti household filled with things Dominic has already selected: new bedding for Jacob, books for Lily, a desk where Vivien can work on the online college classes she has enrolled in, using the $50,000 to reclaim the life that fire had taken. Emma arrives at the housewarming with a gift she made herself, a clay handprint painted gold, her fingers pressed into the clay when she was 6, baked in a kiln at school, preserved like proof that this moment matters. She hangs it on Vivien's bedroom wall without asking, and when Vivien sees it, she breaks into the kind of tears that come from being loved. The dinner at the restaurant happens on a Thursday night, the kind of quiet place where no one bothers them, where they sit in a corner booth and talk for 3 hours about everything and nothing, about his childhood in Napoli before the family came to Chicago, about her mother who was a teacher before the cancer took her, about the moment he knew he was going to ask her about dinner, which was the second day, actually, when he found her in the library reading to Emma, and the sound of her voice telling a story broke something he thought was sealed shut forever. When he laughs at something she says, a real laugh, unguarded, the kind that comes from genuine joy. Marco texts Sal from his surveillance position outside, "I have worked for him for 15 years and never heard that sound." Sal responds, "Neither have I. Something is different." Something is different. The Sunday dinners at the mansion happen every week now. The long table that was built for power and empire is finally full, Jacob teaching Dominic how to play the video game, the crime boss completely lost but trying, pressing buttons at random, laughing when he dies. Lily showing Emma her spelling homework, the older girl reading each word carefully. Vivien at one end of the table, Dominic at the other, both of them watching their children like they are watching miracles. One night Dominic finds Vivien in the library reading bedtime stories to all three children. Jacob is asleep on one side, Lily on the other, Emma curled into Vivien's side like she is a shelter. The woman who scrubbed floors in silence, who was invisible, who carried the weight of $17 and a dream that seemed impossible, she is reading about a boy who learned to fly, and every child in her arms believes that flight is possible because she is telling them it is. He stands in the doorway and understands what his father never taught him, that power is not about the empire you control, but about the people who trust you enough to sleep while you keep watch. I built an empire on vengeance, Dominic thinks, and all of it, the money, the territory, the fear, the loyalty bought with threat instead of love, none of it kept me safe when my daughter stopped breathing. But one woman, one invisible woman in a black and white uniform, taught me that sometimes the most powerful thing a person can do is reach out one hand at the right moment and change an entire life. Anthony Marchetti is in federal prison now, in a cell where the guards know exactly who he tried to hurt and why he deserves every day of his 40-year sentence. Margaret Harrington is erased from the circles she spent her life building, a cautionary tale whispered at gallery openings, a name no one will speak, a woman who learned that cruelty to children has a cost that money cannot pay. But Vivien Harper will spend her life knowing that the fire that took everything forced her to reach out for help, to accept that survival sometimes means letting someone else be strong while you rebuild. And Dominic will spend his learning how to be the man she sees when she looks at him, not the monster Chicago fears, but the father who loves his daughter and the partner who learned that building something with someone is worth more than any empire built alone. Sometimes one hand reached out at the right moment can change an entire life. If this story moved you, drop a like right now and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe and hit that notification bell because tomorrow we are bringing you another story that will make you believe in second chances. Comment below, what would you have done in Vivien's position? When life burned everything down, would you have had the courage to keep building? Drop your thoughts and we will see you in the next one.